So today we are going to talk about threat modeling. Hands up if you know or rings a bell or know about what is the concept. He knows, that guy in the back that did a talk and put that in the first step knows. So yeah, if you've been to Mike's talk, he also mentioned threat modeling this morning. Okay, threat modeling is the real shift left in the software development lifecycle. This is the shift leftest of all. It's when you start thinking about security right before you even start building your application or your system or whatever you are designing. So how I'm going to explain these concepts? I don't have the timer. I have just a 0, so I don't know if time. I don't have the time here. It's OK? Now, OK. So I'm going to explain this as it was like a game, a role game, a board game, you name it, whatever. So we are going to first meet our contenders, because we are having 2 teams. And I'm going to go through the general rules of threat modeling. What is threat modeling? Why should we use it? When should we use it? Then we are going to talk about roles that could participate in this process. I'm going to introduce you to some jargon, so you have some concepts that you can linger while I explain. The next step is how do you actually play this game, and you find what could go wrong with your design, and think strategically how to solve it before you start building. And in the end, I'm going to give some final advice after I laid off everything. I'm going to just try to tell you how to start, if you haven't started yet. And of course, if I have any time left, QA goes in that section. So I would be thankful for having questions at the end. So let's start. This is the first team. Hands up if you know who these couple are. Yeah, people from my generation, mostly. This is a movie I grew up with. This is a threat movie. I mean, the whole movie is a disaster. It's how things can go sideways so fast if you don't think about security from the get-go, OK? So these guys are Walter and Anna Crowley. They are the lead roles for the movie called The Money Pit. And here in Spain, I think it's Esta casa es una ruina. So you can get the idea of what is it about. But I'm going to tell you just in case. So it's a movie from the '86, so I can do the spoiler by now. I really recommend you to see it if you haven't. So these people were very rushed into taking try on buying a house, because they have to move away from her ex-husband's flat. They were kind of squatting over there. So they had to move out, so they found like a bargain, a huge mansion. It was very good looking. The owner was in a hurry to sell out. Does it ring a bell? A hurry. They really needed to get on the business because it was so cheap. It was a bargain. And they said, OK, we can put some paint here and there, new furniture. We're going to fix whatever is bad. I mean, maybe light bulb is not working. I don't know. I can do gardening myself, he said. But the house did have another plan for them. And the minute they moved in, the house started to shut down. It became like a massive denial of service. Like they had to stop there, and they had to live in the house where they were trying to solve at the same time all the issues that this house had. OK, let's go for the second team. I'm going to be part of this team. You are also going to be part of this team. We are going to see this in another chapter, how you become part of it. So let's do a brief introduction about me. I'm Barbara Teruggi. I'm a security architect. I'm normally the person that will start doing some proactive security. I kind of appear in my position. I appear before things get done and try to accompany the teams that I work with to get safer to the journey of going through the production environment. I'm also a proud music addict. If somebody was yesterday, maybe you can see myself singing some songs. So if this talk backfires, I can still sing a song. I'm an amateur rock climber. I love the mountain. This is where I go and disconnect from the world and be present in something else that is not security. And I'm also a professional overthinker. I think this is what can kind of get me into this specialty. So I wasn't always like this. I had a past life where I was more reckless. I have to say, Walter and I are not the only ones to take bad decisions. I did do an incursion on roller skating trying to impress some friends. I didn't know anything. Last time I skated was like maybe 10, by the time I was 20. And I decided that it was a good idea to test my new pair of roller skates in a steep road, like this. If you live here, that would be Mare de Déu de Montserrat. I don't know if this rings a bell. It's like the steepest road in Barcelona, probably. So I went on there with my new pair of roller skates. Next thing I remember, I was face down in the floor. I had to get surgery. My teeth were also like broken and everything. So yeah, eventually I should have learned, right? No, I tried snowboard. It ended similarly, but not too bad. I also tried skiing. Eventually, I found out that sliding was not my thing. So I switched to climbing. So I'm better this way now because I have a rope. And if I take a fall, I will not go very far. OK. Let's move on. So what is threat modeling? Exactly the opposite to this. We plan ahead. We plan our security controls ahead of building our projects. So as the threat modeling godfather Adam Shostak says, threat modeling is the measure twice, cut once in cybersecurity. What is basically you take all the information that is relevant from a security perspective of the design of the application or the system you're trying to build, and you systematically scan it to spot all the threats that you can possibly spot. Then you think, can they happen? And how bad does the thing get if they are realized, okay? So then what you do is prioritize them in the order that you found that they are more likelihood is higher and the impact is higher, and then you find strategies to address such threats. We will find more about this on upcoming chapters, okay? And the goal, of course, is to reduce the possibility of either having a security incident, but the zero chance doesn't exist, okay? You can do as much as you can, but there is always some chance. But in the event that it happens, you can prevent the impact to be very high for you. OK, so why is this so important? If we go to the OWASP top 10, hence if you know what is OWASP. OK, for the ones that don't know, this is the Open Web Application Security Project. It's a foundation that has all sorts of documentation about security and all kinds of manuals to apply security in your projects, you name it. You do mobile, web, APIs, GenAI, whatever you will find there is a really good resource. So this top 10 from 2021 is going to be updated sometime during this year, hopefully. The number 4 in the list is insecure design. This is the main reason why the incidents occur. You can have a perfect implementation of a flawed design. If your design wasn't considering all what has to be considered around security, you have a perfect implementation, but it's also pretty hackable. Oh, they're having a party somewhere. Good for you. So, OK, the one solution, one big solution for that is moving left, 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 and start the development lifecycle by applying threat modeling in the design phase. And then you are going to keep checking on you. OK, so if you don't do that, maybe you face this. It's game over for you at some point. So when should you perform threat modeling? For me, there are 4 stages that you could do. When you are designing, that's obvious. I already told you about this. When you're incrementing your application, you're adding new features, you're doing major changes, and those trigger a security review. Of course, not everything triggers a security review. In this case, you would do it here. You would repeat that. When you're operating and monitoring your applications, if you go to the doctor every year, hopefully to check your health, why wouldn't you do that for your applications? Because new threats emerge every day, every hour. So it does no harm, on the opposite, to check how your application is doing. And of course, if you unfortunately suffer an incident and it resulted on a breach or something, and you are facing partial or total redesign of your application, threat modeling comes again in as a useful tool. So our players, number one, are here. They face the total shutdown of their house, so they are in this phase. Guess where we are going to start from? What I said? The design. OK, we are here. So now let's see who is in the room, who can participate in this room. If I say something similar to your role, you can do that like this, and you are invited to the party. Because we don't do these things alone. We need everyone that can add some knowledge to this. And it doesn't limit to only security people, OK? Everyone is invited here, depending on the kind of project, of course. But some people that you may find, a security expert of some sort. It can be an architect, but it can be a security champion. You can also have a security engineer, whatever you call it in your company. An architect, if you have one of those, of solutions architect, software architect, cloud architects, we have many flavors nowadays. The product owner, because they ensure that the end design, the final design, is going to still meet the business goals. Because if you do some changes, you still have to go back to them to see, does this design do what you asked for in the first place? A developer, of course, developers are crucial here. They are going to implement the security best practices in the code once you start building. So they can also help because they have the expertise. If you're coding in Java or C or Kotlin or whatever, you are the ones that are hands in the code. You know your frameworks, you know your languages. So you're very much invited to this. QA tester and pen testers, these are allies to design the tests. How do we test those controls? They are going to participate in that. UX designer, why I'm citing UX designers? If your application involves customer journeys, you will like them to tell you how to better make a sweet design so the user doesn't get overwhelmed with all the warnings and everything, because people that are on the back end, I was in the back end, so I don't know anything about user journeys, so these people are the experts. And of course, any other kind of subject matter experts, depending on what are you designing, OK? OK, so how do you organize this work? Hands up if you know what is a RACI chart. One hand. OK, nice. I have to. This is a way of ensuring that nobody drops the ball and nobody steps into each other's toes. It's an acronym for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It's how you distribute the different tasks that are in the threat modeling process. So everybody can be active in one step and then go and do their usual task and then be called when they're needed again. But you are making sure that everybody stays in the loop at all times. So you have the responsible, that is the person that has to do the task and deliver the task. So if we are spotting threats, maybe you have the security architect or the security engineer. This person is going to be responsible of scanning the whole design and finding the threats, making an inventory, and deliver it. A leader is the person that is calling the shots. They are accountable for the job to get done, each step to get done. And if there is some decision making, this person is going to have the final word, OK? So maybe you can find that if we are talking about budget to address certain threat that we want to mitigate, maybe the product owner has a say on this, OK? Consulted is you can see a figure of a subject matter expert here, people that are consulted on their expertise. So they're not responsible, but they are going to be asked a ton of questions because we don't know everything. And a developer can be consulted, for example. Observed is everyone that doesn't have any active role during one of these steps is going to be kept in the loop. Because imagine that you do step number 1, and then you go do your things, and then you appear again at the end of the process, and you don't know how everything went. So you are going to keep everyone informed at all times if they are not having an active role. Let's move now to jargon. Okay, some concepts that I want you to linger on while I'm explaining the next steps that actually how to play this game. I said play this game because for me it's like a gamified experience if you can think about it. So, of course, we have a lot of concepts, but these are the 3 main ones that I want you to linger on. The threat. What is the threat? A threat is an event or a condition that takes advantage of a vulnerability to cause harm. Let's use an analogy for that, okay? A door could fall and inviting anyone in. So the threat is that the door would fall, or if you have your house is staying at the place, settled at the place that earthquakes happen, okay? An earthquake can take your house away. That's a threat. A vulnerability is a flaw or a weakness, a fail, a bug in your design that could be exploited, taken advantage of, and compromise your security. So rotten wood or rusty hinges of this door is what eventually made this door fall down. That's the weakness, okay? So it made vulnerable to the door to come down. And the risk is the potential, after this happens, for the loss and the damage that you will suffer when this threat becomes a reality. So in this case, they could lose their goods, their privacy, and their sleep eventually, because having no door in your house is, I hope it never happens to me. So another concept that I want you to linger on, because we are going to use it in the exercise, is the STRIDE methodology. You can use a lot of methodologies to perform threat modeling, but this is the one that you are going to be most familiar with if you are designing software or a system, an IT system, okay? So STRIDE is another mnemonic, I would say, mnemonic so you can remember the concepts behind it for these different kinds of categories of threats. So spoofing is when somebody or someone is impersonating somebody or someone. A machine can pose to be a legitimate machine and they're not. Someone can be stealing your identity and posing as if they were you. Tampering is that when you can modify data during transmission, like if you do a man in the middle, you can modify everything to your convenience. Repudiation is when you don't have any logs, and somebody does a big transaction and they say, okay, prove that I did that. So it's like an action has occurred, but you don't have any way to tell that this action occurred. So it's poor logging in the concept here. Information disclosure is like you are exposing sensitive data to an authorized user. There's a way that you can do it yourself, the harm to yourself, by, for example, the error messages. If you are too verbose and exposing a lot about your system, that's a way that you are self-inflicting that injury. And you're giving ideas to the attackers that they didn't have in the first place. So be careful with that. Denial of service, I think, is the most popular one, is when something becomes unavailable because everybody is like, Victor Rentea said yesterday, machine gun your API or something. I like this guy so much. Elevation of privilege is when somebody is gaining higher access. This is an authorization problem. If you have access to do transfer from your bank account to another bank account, from your account, but I can do transfers from his account or her account to my account, I shouldn't do that. So I did something and you didn't validate myself. OK, let's move. Now we have the approaches. How are we going to look at our design and what is the model of the perspective that we are going to adopt while scanning our design. You have 3 ways. There are many other ways, but I'm focusing on the main ones. Asset-centric is you focusing on what you protect. If you're working in an application that has a database and has the precious data, you can focus on what can happen to that asset. This is the jewel. So you can have that, but you have to start your threads looking from there to the rest of the components. It is not really, I mean, it's useful for some cases, but it's not the most used one. Attacker-centric is when you try to get in the mind of an attacker and try to think what this person or this criminal group is going to do, or how can they do it. It is also very difficult because there are many, many motivations, there are many backgrounds, there are many, I mean, it also involves knowing about psychology. So unless you're a very expert, which I'm not, I can think a lot of things, but I'm not an expert on that, you also wouldn't use that. But if you have some expert on that, perfect. Software-centric is the one that we are going to use, is how can my software be attacked? Now you said you're looking at your whole design, and you're just looking about the flaws. Like, because if you think like an attacker, maybe you are going to miss, I think it's the most complete because you can also think, how can I give some idea to an attacker to enter my system? Because one of the first steps that criminal groups do is like the recognition of your system to see, I'm going to try to do for the soft spots here, where I can enter. So you are going to try to have less soft spots as possible. OK, having said that, let's go to the actual process. This is a 4-question framework. What is also was designed by Adam Shostak, and he covered like 4 main questions that it is an easy way to remember the steps of threat modeling if you think about these questions, okay? Because they tell you what to do. So, okay, well, the first theme is like full-on refurbishing. Let's dig in on the 4-question framework. And first question is, what are we working on? These guys have like a Swiss cheese of a house, like full of, I don't know if there is a house in there anymore, full of holes and everything. And we are going to do something different. First, we are going to gather as much information, security-relevant information as possible about the project that we are designing. So you want to know what is the project type, is a new application, a new feature, reassessment of an existing application, remember the operator monitoring phase, what type of application you are building, web, mobile, desktop, what are the functionalities that it covers, what is the important business logic, what is going to be sensitive business logic to you. The technologies, the languages, the tools, the versions, everything is important because some of them can have vulnerabilities, so you want to consider those. Server infrastructure, if you're running them on a server, this is running on-premise, are you having a private cloud, which a lot of big companies have, or are you using public cloud services? You have to be extra careful in these ones, in everything, but those especially. Do you have internet-facing components? Because some threats are like, you are going to rate them on the lower side of the chart because they're less likely to happen. Compliance requirements. We have regulations. Every business has regulations. Here in Europe, we have the GDPR. Financial institutions have DORA. Then we have NIS2, which is an international one. And the European Union just issued the CRA, which is the Cyber Resilience Act. This is like affecting every business, and you will have to go through a lot of compliance audits to actually be compliant to this one. Data specifications, if you're managing data, how confidential, how the integrity and the availability of the data you have to manage. You have different levels. According to that, you're also going to prioritize your threats. And of course, you're also going to think about assets, which are, I mean, the the things that we want to protect, you also have to take them into consideration, even if you're applying the software-centric approach that I said before. OK, the next thing you want to have is a graphic representation of the project. You can have an architecture or a sequence diagram, but the most useful one is the data flow diagram, because it is simple. It depicts your components in a high level, and it shows how the information is flowing from one to the other. OK? So what are we going to design here? If there lost the door, we are going to design our digital door for the application. That is the login module. So I made this into four. This diagram is breaking into 4 smaller diagrams, because for this implementation, the login will have 3 steps. You have the authentication service, like it's going to validate the first factor. It's normally a password. You will have the multi-factor authentication service, and then you are going to have the session management service once you get in. And of course, the audit service is always present, because you are going to log everything in your application. OK, so the red lines here, I don't know if this works. No, nothing. The red lines over there are the boundaries. If you go from point A to point B to point C, there is something that has happened that needs to happen in between. It's a different level of trust. So you have to be more restrictive as you approach the crown jewels, which is the databases where you store the significant data. In this case, our logs. So I said I'm going to break this into 3 smaller diagrams to make it readable. You have the authentication service. I mean, you're kind of familiar with how a login happens. OK. So, of course, the login happens, the password goes through, goes to authentication server, a service that could be an IDP. And it consults the user database, and everything gets logged. And if everything is OK, we go to the next step, which is the MFA service. Just pay attention to this one, because I'm going to focus in the MFA service. OK? In this case, I'm using an OTP with this one-time password through the email. This is my initial design. Bear with me. And I'm going to generate the OTP. I'm going to control the storage, that you cannot reuse it, that is short-lived, blah, 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 blah. Everything that I can consider, but I'm still using the email. And I'm logging everything. Of course, if everything is OK, we are going to the session management service, which, if the previous steps were successful, you create a session, and the user is allowed to go to the login page. Okay? I'm not handling here authorization. I'm just speaking about starting a session. Okay? So last but not least, you might have, of course, at this time in 2025, you already have existing security controls. Who starts a design without any security control? Nobody. Hopefully. So, of course, I have brute force prevention on the login, comprehensive login. I log everything, inwards and outwards. I have strong password policies. I have, let's see, now it's appearing in green. I'm focusing on this. I have a lot of controls to take care of this one-time password. And I have secure communication, and I have a lot of network security. I use network segmentation. I have a web application firewall. I have network firewalls with the best configurations, IDS, IPS, which is our intrusion detection systems, intrusion protection systems. I have a lot of things. Okay, but I'm still worried about the MFA, right? So this is when I start scanning what could go wrong. I do it for the whole design, not only MFA, okay? But I do it for everything. So I'm going to show you some examples of the results of the first threat scanning. I spotted some threats. I used the straight analogy, okay? And I assign a category to each threat. I said, what is the threat? What is the name of this threat? If we go to the MFA, I'm worried that the code can be theft. How? By using phishing. And the threat is spoofing. If somebody got your password with some other method and then access to your second factor, then they can successfully log in, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And you have your network control, but the user has been hacked, and the user is going to probably lose their account. So the affected component, of course, is the MFA service, the process. And you have some references here that you can relate this to that explain a little bit better how this can happen. It is going to explain phishing. That's a spoiler. But, so this is what can actually happen. So let's focus in this one because, as you may already know, OWASP, I saw a lot of hands here. KPEG is less known. It's another resource coming from an organization called MITRE. And this is our common attack pattern enumeration classification. This gives a lot of information about how identity spoofing can happen, okay? And the consequences and what can happen is the impact is somebody could gain privilege as well. It's like one is changed to the other, one threat is changed to the other. And you have the reason here, the weakness that is associated to is improper authentication. So we probably could do it better. So now we do a risk analysis. What can go wrong if the user loses their account? So the likelihood of this happening is medium because maybe the user is not going to give their code away so easily, but it can happen. It's happening a lot, actually. And the impact is very high. The user could potentially lose their account, okay? And the total risk score that I give, the median, is high because although I have a lot of things that I did in my site to control this OTP, anti-reusage, as short as possible as sleep, but you still need to give 5 minutes so the user can access to their email account and everything and get the code and inform it, etc. But phishing remains a concern. So you score this, and now you are going to decide what are you going to do about each threat that you have spotted in your design. So this is the third question of the process. Now you have 4 strategies that you can follow. We're still focusing on the MFA code threat, okay? The first thing is that you can avoid it by entirely not implementing MFA, maybe not, because then you're down to 1 factor. So this is definitely not the good strategy. You can accept the risk. You can acknowledge, okay, MFA through email happens. It's widely used in the industry. I'm not going to overthink it. You are going to be prepared to act in the event that a user gets their account hijacked, and you are going to monitor the risk, etc. So you are going to continue using MFA. It's totally fine if you don't have any other option. You can transfer. You can shift the responsibility of the risk for a third party. This would be the user. But I like to say that it is never 100% transferring. You can have user education. You can educate your user to not share this with anyone. Like we're never going to ask for your second factor. Don't share it with anyone. So you help the user to make informed decisions, secure decisions. So it's not 100%. But the one that I like the most, and you can actually do it, is mitigate this. You're reducing the impact by using, you see a T there, one-time passwords. This is, you can use an authenticator application. It's very easy to implement because you have an SDK to plug it to your application. And you can have the user having a second factor, which is a very 30 seconds lived second factor code. And there is a Veridium that actually is a QR, so you have many options. And the user can have this second factor even in another different device that they're using the application. You still have to test this, but it's way better than email. So the risk treatment ends up on how I'm going to mitigate because I decided to mitigate. So I'm going with the authenticator application, and I'm going to test it anyway. I'm going to try to use phishing, I'm going to do code replay attacks, try to use that more than once. Of course, it's impossible. It's random. It's very safe at the moment. I hope any new technology doesn't break this. And you have a reference how to test this, actually. So you have a lot of documentation how to do that. And then comes a step where you check, did we do a good job after doing all this exercise? And you write all the documentation and everything. OK, so you are going to run checkpoints here, like a list. If you are in the design phase and you just done spotting the threats, documented, deciding, et cetera, you ensure that the final design, sorry, I don't know what I did, OK, that the final design aligns with the initial plan or updated documentation. Remember the product owner, you're going to ask them, does this still does what you asked? OK, now we are good, or we have to go back to the drawing board. You validate with the stockholders everything, and you determine, in that case, if you need iteration to repeat the process, and you do it again. Sometimes you're going to have to do it again. Testing phase is you verify that all the security controls have been implemented. This is where you test with dynamic application testing. We have static. You have also pen testing you can run over there before releasing. Do whatever you want. Unit tests, QA tests are also security. QA is security as well. And if you miss something, you go and readjust and re-implement. And after the deployment phase, you rerun the security test. You can do regression tests here. You can test post-deployment. Make sure that your tests are not able to complete a full action, or we have a problem, just in case. And conduct retrospective to document these challenges, the solutions, the lessons learned with when you are already breathing because you made to the production environment, then you can do the retrospective. And you determine if you have to go back. If you happen to find yourself 3 times in this situation, maybe you have another thing to learn. But as you get proficient with this, of course, it will happen less and less and less. So my final advice, because I laid a lot of information to you, OK, but where do I start now? Because maybe you are doing threat modeling, maybe you're not doing it, maybe somebody else is doing. So I'm going to try to give some hints of where could you start, OK? OK, start with an existing production application that isn't going to change anytime soon. I'm sure you have something like that. There's legacy, super legacy application that nobody wants to touch, even with a stick, and try to apply there. It's going to be entertainment for sure. You can dedicate time between sprints if you are doing Agile. Just dedicate some for training purposes or something to get a hold of the process and play and involve your team. This is a perfect exercise for a security champions program. Hence, if you know what is a security champions program, OK, it should be more known. Maybe next time I will try to bring a talk about this. It is when you upskill people in your teams, normally developers, technical people that are hands in the code, hands in configuration, and you reskill them and add the security features, and you will grow like, I don't know, Goku or something. You're superpower now. Practice makes better. OK, just learn by doing. Do not stay in the theory too long. You can read a lot of books. I really recommend Adam Shostak's book. It's really good. It's also huge, but it's very interesting. But you don't have to stay in the theory. Try to practice, because that is where you learn. Start small and create a habit, OK? It will pay out. And you repeat the cycle. This threat modeling is a cycle. You try to keep your models updated. It doesn't make sense to do threat modeling today. Forget it about the next 10 years, because probably your application would have mutated 1,000 times or even get decommissioned. And you have a nice threat modeling that is useless. You can develop security patterns. medium to big companies normally do the same type of application APIs over and over. So you don't have to do threat modeling every time to everything. If you threat modeling, how are we going to create our APIs? What controls are going to go there by de facto? Then you can apply that pattern, and when you're doing threat modeling, I consider this pattern that we are keeping updated at all times. So you update a pattern, and then you apply it. And you reuse, like libraries, but with security concepts. And sharing is caring. This is my last advice. I think local communities are really helpful. We have two in Barcelona. One is two that I know. There are many, I'm sure, but two that I like to talk with. OWASP Barcelona chapter. They are doing monthly meetings. Everybody is welcome. Their sessions are in English because people from everywhere goes. So common language is English. They're really nice people, the people who lead this conference and this chapter. And you can also go and do a talk if you want. Everybody is so welcome. And there is also an up-and-coming community about threat modeling. If you happen to like the process, there is the Threat Modeling Connect chapter in Barcelona that I think they will start to be active around October or something. But you can always ask me because I will stay in touch with them. I can give you information if you want. And of course, always share your experience with everyone, because you don't know if the person that is sitting right next to you has had the same problem. If you have a thing about confidentiality, you cannot share and anonymize the content. You can do that. You can say, okay, I have a friend of a friend did this and whatever, but sharing is caring, really, learn from others. So thank you. This energy check, do I still have people present in the room like this? It's okay, nice, thank you. So this is all for now. Now, if you can please rate me. This is the second forum that I asked for a little bit more feedback, things that you are interested in that I can bring up next. From the security architecture perspective, I'd be very pleased to attend your petitions. And thank you for everything. If somebody has a question, we have like 6 full minutes or a longer coffee break. Thank you.